Hey guys, and welcome to another video here on our channel The Guide. I'm Benjamin, also known as Taz, and today we talk about the controller settings in FIFA 21. There are plenty of new ones, there are other ones which are changed in contrast to previous titles, and therefore this can be quite overwhelming and also quite confusing. In this video I will give you an explanation for each controller setting as well as a recommendation. But before we start with that, just a quick reminder that a few weeks ago we started the Guide Plus, our project to deliver you even more helpful content. Each week we publish 4 content pieces like advanced gameplay tips, how to use certain skill moves, gameplay analysis of TG Plus members, formation guides, how to build a competitive team, just to name a few. There are already so many posts that you can enjoy right now and more coming each week. You also get access to an exclusive Discord server at which you can ask us specific questions and become a part of a growing community with already over 100 members that all share the interest to get better at FIFA. Interested in joining? You can find the link in the video description for more information and also some posts that you can access for free. And now let's start with the controller settings. The sheer amount of controller settings can become overwhelming, so we go step by step and give you a brief explanation as well as a recommendation when it's possible or useful. Let's start with the FIFA Trainer. The FIFA Trainer is a visual aid during the game that you can opt to show or hide. You can choose what kind of information is displayed, like what buttons to press, but also more technical information like passing direction. If you don't need any of this, you can just hide it. I think the information on creative runs can be quite useful, but this only works in selected game modes and is not possible in Weekend League, for example. Time finishing was a big one in FIFA 19 when it was introduced. Back then it was basically a must-have, but the relevance shrunk in FIFA 20. In 21 I think it's still useful in some situations, in particular for penalties and free kicks, but also some tough finishing situations. A green time finish can give you the edge to score the goal, so I would recommend having it on. If you are uncomfortable with time finishing, it's also not a big fuss to turn it off. The next player switch indicator shows a grey indicator above another teammate of yours when in defense. This signals to which player you're going to switch when you use the player switch button, L1 or LB, but also which player is going to be called for the second man press when you use the R1 or RB button. If you're able to process this additional information from the second indicator, it's very helpful, so turn it on. If it's confusing or irritating, you can turn it off as well. In fact, I know some pro players that have it turned off. The pass block assistance leads to auto launches of your player when the ball gets close by. This helps you in close situations to intercept, but there are also situations where your player launches for no whatever reason, so it can be problematic to have it on. I tried this setting off for a couple of games, but I don't feel comfortable with it. So I would say that the benefits of the pass block assistance outweigh the downsides and recommend having it on. The auto switching option determines when a player switch happens automatically in defense. Auto is a no-go for the aspiring FIFA player because it takes away too much control that you want to have. So set it to either manual or airballs. If you can manage manual quite well, it's probably the best option, because you have your player switches under much more control. But it can be problematic when a quick player switch is necessary, for example after a cross, some weird rebound or any other confusing situation. Handling those comes down to being used to doing the player switches completely on your own. I usually use airballs, but in the last couple of days I tried out manual on purpose, and in the beginning you always have to think about doing the player switch on your own, which can lead to late player switches in crucial situations. Therefore having this to airballs is more comfortable, but in a few rare instances there can occur some issues with it when you get switched to a player that you rather don't want to control at this moment. So manual can have some benefits, but it's also a little bit harder to play. The auto switching move assistance is only a factor when you have the auto switching option set to airballs or auto. On manual this doesn't matter, as it's only doing something when an auto switch occurs. Then, depending on the situation, it takes some time until the newly controlled player reacts to your input with the left stick. This reduces the chance that you run in the wrong direction after such a player switch did take place. Thus, we recommend this setting to have it either on low or high, with high being preferable for newer players. The Jockey setting affects the behavior of your player in jockey defending, so while pressing L2 or LT. With assisted, it basically slows down your player movement when you're close to the ball and move to the side of it. This prevents you from running past the opponent player, as you can see in this example, at which I had the Jockey assistance on manual. Here you can see how I was missing the required position to connect to the opponent and he got passed by me because of that. So it's like it is for most of these options. Assisted helps you in some situations, but also eliminates some room of freedom in others. For example, slowing you down when you don't want that to happen. For Jockey, I would mostly recommend to use assisted. Only use manual when you know exactly what you're doing in defense. With auto Flair passes on, occasionally your player will perform a Flair pass on his own, depending on the player and the situation, like a back heel all of a sudden. This can be neat, but reduces the control that you have. Sometimes the execution of those Flair passes also takes a little bit longer, potentially ruining the timing in a crucial situation. Therefore, I recommend having this setting off. That way you can do the Flair passes only in those situations when you do the input for it with the L2 LT button and you actually want it to happen. Auto clearances determine whether a player in a messy or dangerous situation, for example in the box, is going to automatically clear the ball without you pressing the clearance button. Personally, I don't want this to happen because most of the time I feel like I could have controlled the ball instead of just clearing it. Therefore, I recommend having this off. Auto shots is something which happens extremely rare. In fact, I played over 500 games of FIFA 21 by now and it never happened to me. For example, it could occur when you cross to the back post, you get the player at the back post selected, but another player of your team gets to the cross at the near post. With on, this player would automatically shoot, and with the experience of previous FIFAs, when this happens, it has an extremely high chance of going in. That's why I don't have a problem having this setting on. Player lock is a new feature that allows you to control a player off the ball. It's part of the creative runs, which are new in FIFA 21. We already covered this in another video, which you can view when you click in the top right corner. It's activated by pressing in the left and right stick. Unless you don't have the problem that you activate player lock by accident in some other situations, I don't see a reason to deactivate it with this setting. So you can just keep this on. Contextual Agile Dribbling is also referring to a new feature, the Agile Dribbling. With on, your player will, based on context, do a few touches with Agile Dribbling without you pressing the R1 or RB button. This can be helpful for less experienced players as you do a slick dribbling for a brief moment, but you don't have control over it, and this could also have the potential to ruin your dribbling. Therefore, I recommend having this off, since that way you have more control over the way your player dribbles the ball. In case you didn't already know, in online game modes such as Ultimate Team, you always play with manual headers in FIFA 21, so you have to manually aim them. With this setting you decide how this is for games offline, against the CPU or friends. It's definitely easier to play with assisted headers, but if you want to prepare yourself for online games and don't want to switch all the time on how you have to deal with those heading situations, I would recommend having it off. That way you always play without the assistance as you would do when you play online games anyway, and you get more used to it. Player switching with the right stick is a very important technique in defense and can be a critical milestone in becoming an advanced player. To switch the player, you flick the right stick, and with this setting you determine whether the direction of the player switch is relative to the player that you have currently selected or the ball as the center. Player relative was the default one for the last years, so this is what most people are used to. But for some of you it could be easier to orientate yourself with the ball. I think there are up and downsides for both ways, and it comes down to personal preference, what suits you more. For now, I stick with player relative. For all these assistants about passing, crossing and shooting, it's more or less the same. Assisted for most of them is the best choice because it helps you in a way at which it makes the game easier to handle for you. So you can't do much wrong when you have all of them on assisted. Yes, if you want to have a real challenge, you would put it on manual, and actually that's a ton of fun when you have all assistances off. But if you want to be as competitive as possible, you're better off with assisted. With a few exceptions that I want to briefly describe. Not much to say about the ground pass assistance. From my perspective, it's just too helpful to have it on assisted. A different case can be made for the through ball assistance. In the beginning of FIFA 21, I had it assisted, but I had quite some instances at which I was frustrated about the way my player played some through passes. Therefore I switched it to semi, and I think I have less problems now. If you can identify yourself with this problem, you can give it a go as well. The shot assistance is best set to assisted, everything else just makes it harder to score. The cross assistance is changed in FIFA 21 a bit in comparison to previous FIFAs. To put it simple, the semi setting of the last couple of years is assisted now. Thus, semi in FIFA 21 is much harder and you have to aim more precisely with that. To my knowledge, as a benefit to using semi, you have less error in your crosses. But I use assisted since the start of FIFA 21 and don't have any problems with that. I know that for the Lob Pass Assistance, some people recommended manual to also be able to play some crazy through balls with that in previous FIFAs. If you want to explore the potential of this in FIFA 21, you can try it out. If you just want to play a more standard way, assisted is a good choice. The safe assistance is only in place when you play the goalkeeper role in pro clubs. To be honest, I have no personal experience with that, but to my knowledge this is set to manual when you're an experienced player as a goalkeeper. The analog sprint setting needs a brief explanation. Per default you have sprint on the R2 or RT button. You can partially press in those trigger buttons. With analog sprint off, it doesn't matter how much you press in that button. Your player would always sprint with full speed. While having it on, you have the possibility to determine the pace of your player by how much you press in the button. This can be helpful, for example in midfield when you push up your attack but don't want to sprint in full speed, as this would lead to fewer ball contacts and thus harder to control the dribbling. This is a very advanced technique and not a lot of people would actually use or need this. But as long as you always fully press in the trigger button when you want to sprint in full pace, there's no downside in having analog sprint on. Defending can be set to tactical or legacy. Legacy is much easier, but only available for offline games, so career mode or playing offline against a friend. As soon as you go online, you can only play with tactical defending. That's why we recommend to use tactical defending, as this is the standard. Legacy is really out of fashion, as the name already gives away. Sticking to legacy will only give you problems in the future. I think at some point it will get removed from the game entirely. At last we have the pass receiver lock setting, a really interesting one. When you play a pass to a teammate, at some point it locks the player to which you're passing to. With late, you can change your target up until the moment your player is executing the pass. This gives you the option to pass to another teammate in the last second. For example, when you notice that during the time between input of the pass and execution, your desired player isn't free anymore. This is clearly beneficial. On the other hand, some are irritated by this when they already want to use the left stick to control the player which would receive the ball, but the direction of the left stick is still responsible for the direction of the pass and not the following dribbling. If this sounds familiar to you, you can try out early pass receiver lock. That way it locks earlier and you can start to use the left stick also earlier to give the input for the pass receiver. But obviously with the downside that you can't switch the target that late. As soon as you do the input for the pass, pick your target and the pass gets executed, it locks to that player. Personally, I would recommend the late setting for this one, as I clearly value the possibility to change my target at the last second. Whoa, we are through. Controller settings get really comprehensive. Each year new options are added, making it more complicated, but also giving you more ways to tailor it to your specific needs. This aspect is quite crucial here. We can give you an explanation and also a recommendation. At the end, a lot of it comes down to personal preference. So there is no need to just copy everything which is stated here. With the understanding of what every setting accomplishes, you can try it out and see for yourself. Keep in mind, some settings take some time to get used to it. Man is a creature of habit. And this holds especially true for these settings here. Anyway, we hope that this video is a help to you to get a better understanding and find the best settings for you. If this is the case, please leave a like and also share it with your friends who might need some help as well. Doing this helps us a lot to keep our channel going with more content. Don't forget to subscribe and also activate notifications to not miss any of our upcoming videos. When you're interested in even more tips and tricks around FIFA, check out the Guide Plus with 4 content pieces each week. You can find the link in the video description. Thanks for your attention, keep a clean sheet, I'm out.